Wowzers. Inflation surges to 9.1% in June, the highest level in 41 years. Holy crap. We're going to talk about inflation. First of all, what is inflation? Because I think a lot of people have a very bad understanding of what inflation is. And we're going to get into commodity prices. There's some interesting things happening with commodity prices right now. We're entering into we've been in a recession, right, for a little bit of time. Just not everybody is acknowledging that. And that can be seen in the commodity prices. Another interesting thing is happening is related to foreign exchange currencies, right? So we're going to take a look at the euro dollar, the Aussie dollar, the British pound, Canadian dollar, and the Chinese yuan, and take a look at all of those in this video, because we have a lot of things happening right now, and trying to put all this together can be challenging or difficult to understand. And then to wrap it all up, what does this mean for crypto? Right? Like, how does this affect crypto? We're going to talk about that. So first, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it is good to freaking see you. If you guys like to support, you can check out some links down below, thetriggeredbrand.com, thetriggeredbrand.com. Check those out. Okay, so let's get into this. Inflation. What is inflation? First, before we get into this, what is inflation, right? You're like, prices go up. Well, that's kind of slightly, maybe a little bit accurate, but what does it mean? Well, it's in relation to the currency which is denominated in. So, to put this into perspective, if you remember back, say when, and I don't know what the ratio was, but when Bitcoin, whatever the price Bitcoin was when Ethereum launched, maybe it was 75 to 1, meaning there was 75 Ethereum you could get for every one Bitcoin. Now it's 20 to 1, right? For every one Bitcoin, you can get 20 Ethereum. So when you think about inflation on that, you got to look at it from both sides, right? Ethereum inflated, but so did Bitcoin, right? They've both gone up in price. One went up faster than the other one, right? And that changed the ratio at which that takes place. So everything here in the United States is denominated in USD. What happens when USD loses value, right? The prices of everything else appear to be more expensive because USD, you can purchase less of that. So that effectively is what's happening with inflation. When the government just prints money, right? The government, the fiat system, is just like the ultimate rug pull, for a crypto term there, where they could just print however much they want, right? If you were told about a cryptocurrency where I hold the admin keys, and that just means that I can access the code and change the supply, say from 1 million tokens to 100 million or 10 billion tokens. And if you had 50% of the supply and I did that, then what you have is effectively fucking nothing. And that's what the government does on the regular. So that is effectively what inflation is for things. Now, we talked about what inflation is, but we also mentioned that commodity prices have been coming down. And there's two things to take a look at when we think about that. But let's first take a look at gas prices, because this says 9%, but is that really accurate? I buy protein, right, at the grocery store, and I think it has like 18 servings. I just get it because it's super convenient when I go shopping. It's like, okay, I need a new tub of protein. I get it there. It's cheap, and I will, it's convenient because I'm already shopping in the store. So I just buy it there. And it was $14, $13.99, about a year ago, probably less than a year ago. And it is currently $17, $16.99. So that's a $3 price increase, or a 30% price increase. So when you see this, right, you're like 9%. Wait, 9% doesn't sound terrible. I mean, it is fucking horrible, right? But 9%. But then you look in reality. Reality is different than the numbers the government that makes up and can change any of those factors anytime they want, however they want, to tell whatever fucking story they want. Look at what's taken place over the last 30 months, right? Since they had this fucking pandemic shit. Now, this is U.S. regular gas of all different formations. So what that means is just like you have 87, you have 89, you have 91 octane, right? But then you also have ethanol, 5% and 10%, I believe. Then at certain points in the year, in certain parts of the country, you change the formulation of the gas depending on the time of the year. Like summertime, it's one formulation, and winter, it's a different time. So that's all these things. Well, let's take a look at this. So inflation, right, back in 2020. So November 2020, the gas, and this is from FRED, which is like the federal economic, it's something to do with, it's a federal website, right? So back in, right around the election, the price of gas was $2.10, right? $2.10. Wow. What is it today? According to them, as of July 7th, it is $4.60. 65 cents. $4.65. Is that a 9% increase? Just I like to know, because I'm trying to do the math in my head, and that seems like more than a 2x increase in price. Yes, more than 100% increase in price. But that's what the report here is, 9%. Well, you're like, Sam, you're looking at 2 years worth of data. Okay, cool. You're right. Let's take a look at 1 year of data. Let's go back to July of 2021. Right here. We had $3.10. Okay, $3.10 versus $4.65. My friends, that is far more than 9%. What does gas go into pricing in terms of like, what if gas prices increase, what is influenced by gas prices increasing? Well, if you're not aware, everything. Plastic is made out of petroleum. Most plastics is made out of petroleum. What else? Everything in the store that you grocery shop at, if you're in the United States, is brought to there by gasoline. All of it. So when gas prices go up by over a 2x in the course of 2 years, or 75% or something like that in 1 year, then do you think that this is even remotely in the realm of accurate, or they're just trying to paint a picture, right? Trying to create a narrative. Think of 2 years ago, early 2020, right? We're just trying to paint a narrative. It is fucking 100% false. But what actually is going on right now? Well, with that, we have commodity prices. This is from AsianFinancial.com. Commodity prices collapse echoes 2008 crisis. This is from the Asian Financial. So this is a picture of plywood. You're like, cool. I hear about commodity prices, but like, what does that mean? Well, you could think of lumber as a commodity, right? Copper this is from their article, copper has plummeted by 21%, 20.6% in the peak of May. Aluminum is down 18%. Nickel is down over 30%. Agricultural commodities like corn and soybeans have also fallen sharply. Excuse me. This is this is interesting, right? Because what happens in a recession? Because why would prices be falling? Well, we have two pieces we need to consider. Why do prices move? If you don't know why prices move, supply and demand. Remember basic economics. Supply and demand drives the price. Cool. So let's take a look at each piece. Let's take a look at demand, then let's take a look at supply. What happens during a recession? Do people spend more money or do they spend less money? Or do they cut back, right? So people tend to spend less money on shit. I was talking to somebody the other day and they switched gyms because it was closer to their house, even though it's like a 2-mile difference, just so there's less driving because the cost of gas has doubled. So that, remember, this means that like not only does everything in the store increase, like gas prices, but also, you guys probably couldn't even see most of this, but also, if somebody drives and puts in, say, $50 back here a week into the car, right, that's $200 a month. Now it's $400 a month. And you're like, well, that seems pretty aggressive. I don't drive that much. Okay, cool. Well, do you drive? And I have a Tesla, so I don't have to deal with this, right? But say you fill up twice a month, right? $50. So now your bill's $100. Either fucking way, the price is more than effing doubled, right? And this is in people's pockets. So getting back to supply and demand. When we're in a recession, people spend less money and they change their behavior, right? So that means demand goes down, which what happens if demand goes down to price? Price also comes down, right? Think of stock, right? Why does stock prices move up? Why does crypto move up? Because it's fucking demand. People are fucking buying more shit. Well, let's take a look at the supply side. What is the supply side? Well, the supply side is going to be business people. What do you want to do if you own your own business that, say, produces one of these supplies? Copper, aluminum, or maybe it's lumber, corn, soybeans, etc. Well, when the price is high, you want to increase, right? You want to increase the supply because you make more money. What does this also do when the price is high? Well, there's a certain cost to producing anything, and there's different ways to produce things. Now, depending on what this is, if you, say, looked at oil, certain drilling or extraction methods for crude oil are feasible at certain prices. At lower prices, those ways of extracting oil are not feasible economically, right? It just doesn't make sense to lose money on every barrel you extract. Well, the same thing goes for corn and soybeans and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when prices are high, existing players increase supply, and then it draws in new players where their variable cost is higher, right? So then it drives down price right there. So we have two things in play. We have the recession, right, where people are going to be cutting back on their spending on what are commodities too. We talked about like what they are: copper, etc., aluminum, blah blah blah. You can pick commodities based upon industry, right? Well, what are commodities? What are raw materials? What are raw materials? Raw materials are the things that go into the things we use. This is a phone, for example, right? That has raw materials inside of it. I'm using a computer or this microphone. They all have raw materials in them. Even things like this, like silica, right, is how glass is made. All of this stuff has raw materials that go into it. So when you say the prices are dropping, you see behavior, right? People are buying less shit, as I mentioned with somebody that I was talking to the other day, changed up their behavior from one gym to another gym because it was slightly cheaper and because it was a mile or two closer to their house. Right? So he saves money in the gym and he saves money by driving less, right? Well, there's lots of those people are optimizing in their life and they're changing their behavior because most of America lives paycheck to paycheck. So if you have a gas cost of $200 a month and now it is $400 a month, where does that extra money come from? Well, it comes out of these things here, right? These things here. And at the same exact time, you're like, okay, well, they're cutting back on spending this stuff because they have to spend it on gas. But then what happens? Well, the same exact thing happens with oil production, right? Because I just mentioned at different prices in oil, different methods of extraction are economically feasible. Now, this is from the Market Screener, or marketscreener.com. EIA, which is the, I think, economic something. I don't fucking know what this is, but we can check it out real quick. They put out, there's a government website, right? EIA is the Energy Information Administration.gov, right? The EIA sees U.S. crude oil production hitting record highs in 2022. This is as of today, about 8 hours ago, the 13th. The U.S. Energy Information Administration forecast record U.S. crude oil production in 2023 at 12.8 million. So what does this mean, right? Well, this also gets even more nuanced here. Why? Well, because when you put this thing into perspective, we have these pieces taking place, right? Commodity prices are coming down because people are shifting their behavior. So then you're like, okay, well, they're still going to be buying just as much gas, but then I just told you people are changing their behavior. Maybe you have changed some of your behavior around your driving. You can let me know down below in the comments. But what else do we know that has been very popular over the last 2 years? Working from home. I work from home. I run my own business, right? Check out the links down below if you'd like to support. So that means I don't have to drive. Plus I own a Tesla, right? But I don't have to drive. I just work from home all day. I go to the gym and that's it, and the post office, right? So when you put these things into perspective, and then you layer on top of there the nuances that's happening in the macro level, we have a shift from ICE engine vehicles to EVs, which is like an internal combustion engine vehicle, you know, the ones that use gas, to electric vehicles, EVs. So ICE to EV. We also have this shift happening from dumb vehicles to smart vehicles, right? Think of a flip phone as an analog car, right, to a smart car, one that is connected to the internet. Now, let me know down below in the comments. Back in 2021, the normal, or what's the world produces in terms of annual car production out of all countries is around 90 million vehicles a year. Did you know that green vehicles were actually about 8.3% of the total vehicles produced in 2021? You know what that number was in 2020? About 4.5. So you had a doubling, right? And in 2022, you're going to also see another doubling to like 16 or 17% of global new vehicles sold being EVs. Whether you fucking like it or not, right? Because I'll get all those comments of idiots who just don't know what they're talking about. Like, I'm not switching. The grid isn't ready for fucking green vehicles. Stay focused, bro. Now, you put all these pieces together, high prices. What does that do to demand? Well, demand drops because it changes consumers' behavior. What does it do to supply? Suppliers, now it makes it even more economically feasible for new suppliers to come in. Current suppliers increase the supply of what they're capable of producing, investing into new equipment, more staff, etc., to grow that. Then you layer on top of this the shift to EVs. We are going to be entering into a very interesting time where crude oil prices, I looked at them earlier, they're around $96 a barrel. This is a drop. I think under Trump at one point they were like $30 a barrel. We're going to see something very, very interesting play out. And I think it's going to be contrary to what you may believe. But before we get into that and the impact on what's actually taking place in crypto, let's take a look at some currencies here. So we took a look at the inflation. We already know that numbers is fucking bogus, right? You can let me know down below in the comments. We took a look at the commodity prices, and we took a look at the oil, right? But let's take a look at currencies. The euro dollar, right? So this is the conversion from one US dollar to a euro, which is like 29 countries in Europe that are all under the euro, or 27 or something like that. This is the first time in about 20 years where we've seen parity. What does parity mean? It just means they're trading out one for one. We have $1 equaling euro. At one point, I think it was close to $1.25 per 1 euro. This is a big rise. So if you are invested, right, in something, and you're looking at your investment returns and you see up and to the right, generally speaking, well, I think pretty much all the time, that's going to be a good thing, up and to the right. So we have dollar gain against the euro. We look at the Australian dollar here. We also see the same exact trend over the last year. An increase in a dollar relative to the Australian dollar. Interesting, right? Started out at 1.34 Australian dollars per dollar, and now it's 1.48 Australian dollars per dollar. What about the pound? Well, we see exactly the same thing. Very clear trend, just like the euro. We're going to tie all this together in just a second. The pound. So $1 US equals 84 cents. It used to be $1 equaled 72 cents, or shillings, or whatever you call them. Or the other way to think about this is 1 pound equals $1.20, $1.19. At one point, maybe 10 years ago, the pound was at $1.60. So 1 pound equals $1.60. This is a drastic change. Why are these things important? Canadian dollar, same exact story, not as drastic, but $1 equals $1.30 of the Canadian dollars versus $1.25. So we see a change there. Even the Chinese swan, right? You would expect the Chinese swan to be gaining against the dollar. And that is not accurate. If you look at this at the beginning, 6.47 won per single dollar. Now we have 6.72, meaning that the won, the Canadian dollar, the British pound, the Australian dollar, and the euro have all been losing value to the US dollar. So what is going on here? We're looking at a lot of freaking data, but let's start to put this together. Well, to do this, let's take a look at this site. So this is the BEA.gov. This is another government website. U.S. international trade in goods and services in December 2021. So this is a single month. And what is it that a country tracks or produces? Right? Well, they have a monopoly on violence, right? They can kill people, and like the government can kill people. You and I can't kill people legally. The government can legally kill people, right? And money, right? Until crypto. Now, in a single month, the U.S. imported $309 billion worth of goods and services from other countries. And we exported $228 billion. So let's put this together here. We have an increase in the dollar for all these currencies, this basket of currencies. We buy that shit from those countries, right? We're importing it from those countries into the United States. But because of the turmoil in the world, right? There's this war in the Ukraine and Russia, where Russia's sanctioned and they produce a lot of oil, right? So then that makes it even more advantageous for people over here to produce oil, as we saw by the EIA reports, right? And then we know that we tend to be at a deficit from an import-export standpoint, meaning we purchase more from other countries than they purchase from us. So we're effectively, when you look at these, at one point, say a year ago, they cost a certain amount. Now, the same exact amount of quantity in terms of goods and services actually cost less because the dollar has gained in value relative to these things. So the purchasing power of the dollar to buy imported goods from other countries has gone up because anything from Europe, Australia, Canada, UK, where else do we look at? In the Eurozone and even out of China, right? Those things have become cheaper for American consumers. While at the same time, everything we send out becomes more expensive to these countries. So when this takes place, we could see a continued deficit, of course, right? But we could see an increase in the deficit during times like this, because we're going to be buying more from those countries. And then if you're in the Eurozone or in Australia, the shit from the United States is going to cost you even more money because the currency in that country or countries have been losing value relative to the dollar. Now, let's put this all into perspective here. What it appears from my point of view and my research is that I believe we're going to have a drop in inflation. I'm going to use the word black swan, but I don't think that is the correct vernacular to use for this, because I think this is going to be what, let's say, Democrats want for the midterm election. Everybody's talking about how inflation is ridiculously high, right? But then what happens during a recession, right? You could have, a lot of times people are going to cut back on their spending. We've already seen this being changed in consumer behavior. So I think we're going to see the black swan is going to be that inflation potentially July, but more than likely August or September or October, we're going to see a drastic decrease in the price or the rate of inflation on an annualized basis, because that's what this number is. They take the month over month change and then they annualize it to get 9.1%, right? The things in that basket they can also manipulate, right? So we already saw when we looked at gas prices and the protein example, and you can let me know that bet fucking shit has gone up by more than 9% for you if you look at the last year, right? So I think we're going to see a massive decrease in inflation as we get into the second half of this year, which is going to be very interesting, because that's going to, let's get into the crypto stuff right now. All of these things together, when you layer them on, are not going to be changing diddly squat for crypto. There is a massive increase in the number of crypto users every day. Every single day, new people are getting onboarded to crypto. What does onboarding mean? They're just figuring it out, right? There's a Grand Canyon of an information gap between legacy finance, people who don't know anything about crypto, and crypto. So when you see things like this, 9%, right? You see gas prices, 2.5xing in a couple of years, or the recession, right? That we're currently taking, what's currently happening. You have a incentive, or this like supposed war shit in Eastern Europe. You have a incentive to protect yourself, right, and your family and your own financial well-being. And if anything, all of this is going to accelerate the transition to blockchain because of the turmoil, because of increasing volatility, because of rising levels of uncertainty. We are going to see the acceleration of adoption in crypto. So this is going to be absolute crazy year. I'm curious to see when crypto.com releases their annual State of the Nation for 2022. I think they do a mid-year one. If they release it in July or August, we'll cover it here on this channel. So make sure to press the subscribe button and the bell notification. because it is going to be frickin' interesting. We understand what is taking place right now. I am dollar cost averaging into crypto on a weekly basis. This is going to be the largest transfer of wealth in human history. Not just in the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. Human history. Wow. This is going to be astonishing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you press the like button, the subscribe button. Jump over to my other channel if you enjoy fitness-related content. Icon should be coming up here. Or Instagram or on Twitter. Links down below. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Peace.